Hey everybody, and welcome to another segment of AstrologyAnswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, October the 31st, which is Halloween for most places in the world. And the moon, which sets the public tone, goes through each sign every 2.5 days. When we wake up on Monday the 31st, the moon enters quirky, individualistic Aquarius at 8:43 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And so it's ideal if I think the kids probably celebrated over the weekend. Adults may be celebrating Halloween more on Monday evening, the 31st. And with the moon in quirky, alternative, innovative Aquarius, it's ideal. But the moon will be in tension with rational Mercury mid-afternoon Pacific time. And so that's just an hour or two when you might be feeling more confused, when you're interacting with others, some misunderstandings, but it's only an hour or two. Tuesday, November the 1st, the moon in Aquarius will be in a hard angle, a 90-degree square angle to upsetting rebellious Uranus, and then onto separating, contracting Saturn. This is a really emotionally stressful time, but this is happening more from mid-afternoon, late afternoon, Pacific Daylight Time. And so it would be a good time not to be exercising, trying to meditate, but certainly get the stress out of your body and don't be, having important meetings or discussions because emotionally you might be overly reactive. On Wednesday, November the 2nd, the moon goes void of course. I talk about this every week. The moon will be void of course in the sign of Aquarius from 4:08 a.m. Pacific time until 11:47 a.m. Pacific time, at which point the moon goes into Pisces. Aquarius is very mental, rational, intellectual energy. And so with the moon there, we tend to maybe be more removed emotionally or analyzing or discussing our feelings as opposed to being in our feelings. And when the moon goes into Pisces for a couple of days, people tend to be overly sensitive, but it's very favorable for compassion, for trusting your intuition. But when the moon is void, of course, as I say every week, the moon is no longer making any aspects to other planets while it's moving through that sign. So the energy is flat, it's unproductive, and you wouldn't want to start a major project during the moon void, of course, because the energy is not strong enough to sustain it. On Thursday, the moon in Pisces will be in harmony with the sun in Scorpio because they're both water signs. And when the public moon is in harmony with the sun, overall it tends to be an easier day. By noon to 1:30, 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, the moon will be in harmony with pleasure-seeking Venus. Venus is the planet of relationships. Venus is the planet of creativity. And with the moon in harmony, this is very favorable. If you're in the Pacific West Coast of the United States, it would be at lunchtime. So it would be very favorable for an enjoyable lunch meeting or a lunch date. And then as you go across the country into Europe, that time period is just a very comfortable social time. Around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Pacific time, the moon will then be in harmony with eclectic, innovative Uranus. Moon Uranus is always a good time to get out of your rut, try something new, bring in more excitement. The Uranus energy can also trigger getting more involved with groups, friendships, so sort of like getting involved with some kind of group activity that would be enjoyable. Friday the 4th, the moon in Pisces, very sensitive Pisces, will align with Neptune. Neptune is the planet associated with Pisces. And this is happening at 3 a.m. to maybe up to 5 a.m. Pacific time. So, you're here on the West Coast of the United States, you're asleep. And maybe since Neptune and Pisces can deal with dreams, you may be having some very vivid, lucid dreaming. If we go all the way into Europe, that could be a time of compassion and charity and healing. The moon will be in a challenging aspect to impatient, irritable Mars, however, from about 8, 9 a.m. Pacific time. As I say, this too shall pass. If emotionally you're feeling anxious or restless, don't engage in a conversation if you can help it. Do some deep breathing, go take a walk around the block. But by mid-afternoon Pacific time, the moon is crossing Jupiter. This happens once a month, where the moon crosses every planet once a month. So there's this emotional resonance to Jupiter, feeling more hopeful, more optimistic, maybe wanting to travel, expand the mind through education. Overall, it sets a more optimistic tone. At 4:08 p.m. Pacific time, the moon on the 4th leaves sensitive, compassionate Pisces and goes into fiery, independent Aries. When the moon is in Pisces, we tend to be more reflective, more introspective, more turning inward. When the moon enters Aries, it's more external. It's more going on an adventure. Let's take risks. And so that's that Friday evening into the weekend. On Saturday, with the moon in restless, fiery, adventurous Aries, pleasure-seeking Venus, relational Venus, will be opposite Uranus. Opposite means interacting with others. The Venus opposite Uranus can be very favorable for suddenly being attracted to somebody else. That's that opposition. It's very favorable for entertainment, but doing something different that's not your usual entertainment. And if you're attending a party or going on a date, if it's something out of the ordinary, so it's triggering some kind of an excitement. But Venus-Uranus can awaken new creative ideas, but also Venus-Uranus is often indicative of an unexpected attraction or infatuation. And it's great for a Saturday night. Sunday, the moon continues in fiery, independent Aries. By early afternoon Pacific time, it's going to be in harmony with Mars. Mars, aggressive, athletic warrior Mars, is the planet associated with Aries. So especially having the public moon Aries in harmony with Mars, the ruler of Aries. So early afternoon Pacific time, they're more motivated, for physical activities, hiking with friends, playing sports, etc., or just feeling a lot more excitement and passion. But then the moon goes void, of course, once again, from 3:30 p.m. Pacific time until 10:15 p.m. Pacific time, and then it goes into more earthy, grounding Taurus. But with that moon in Aries, when it's void, of course, there's always this restlessness to try something new, be first, jump in there right away. But you don't, with the moon void, of course, you don't want to be trying to initiate any important new projects because the energy is flat and unproductive. So I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.